This is Beyond the Bench with Nick Morgasen and Nick Fodera. A look at sports and pop culture from beyond common sense. The show that constantly goes off the rails and might never get back on. When you don't belong, you're a bench warmer. On this show, there's no riding the bench. This is Beyond the Bench on the Empty the Bench Podcast Network. Hey everybody, welcome to episode 10 of Beyond the Bench. That's Nick Fodera. I'm Nick Morgasen. Boy, we've really racked up the guests in the last couple episodes, haven't we?
Yes, we have, and not to give anything away, I don't know if you already said it in social media, but we got another one for this show. So, Nick's been a busy little bee these past couple of weeks, so yeah, it's crazy, isn't it?
Yeah, thanks to Nico Campano, who's a friend of mine who's going to be joining our podcast network as the head of social media and the head of guest booking. So this is totally off him. He used to work at Barstool. I'll leave it at that at the moment. And when we get through the stories, I'll say where we're going. But follow the show on social media, on Twitter at Beyond the Bench 1. Follow on Facebook, facebook.com/Beyond the Bench 1. Follow Nick at Nick Writes Words. Follow myself at N Morgasen Radio. All right, enough social media. We're going to give you a few stories because we got a nice long interview to share with you. So we're going to give you a brief, kind of think of this as going beyond almost the end of the show. Think of it as a sense.
Yeah.
So right off the bat, I think you know what the major topic of discussion has been of late, right, Nick?
Yes, it has. And it sounds like a Transformer character, but it's not. It's not as fun. So the CDC has urged Americans to avoid travel to France, Jordan, and in addition to South Africa over the elevated COVID-19 levels over the past couple of weeks. And we are, as you know, as a country, are kind of in the teeth of a major surge of cases. Now, in this country, it's not due to the Omicron variant, but in other places, especially in South Africa, it isn't. But there is one thing about this that does kind of rub me the wrong way. And if you'll indulge me, it doesn't seem to me singling out South Africa in this situation seems a little bit unfair, because it doesn't necessarily mean just because South Africa's CDC identified the strain and discovered it, it doesn't mean that it originated there. It might have actually. There are some theories kicking around that it might have come from an immunocompromised person in Belgium.
Well, when I heard about this originally about Omicron, they were saying it was from like 2 or 3 year old kids in South Africa. They were saying it was ranging from very young kids there, right?
Well, yeah, because the vaccination rates in South Africa are lower compared to where we are, and compared to
Let me ask a question. Is it because they're refusing to get it? Do they not have the amount to give it to people? What is it?
Well, first of all, a lot of that has to do with vaccine hoarding, especially with wealthier countries, and that's definitely a problem that needs to get fixed. Even though, because once again, profit has taken precedence over human life, so like it often does, but it's a myriad of things. I mean, it seems to me a little bit more like they didn't have the kind of caseload that we did in there, and apparently their COVID surveillance system, their COVID detection system, I should say, was very, very much advanced, far ahead of what we're doing in.
And you know what's crazy? You know what's really crazy? The one country that's really doing this well, better than we are, is Israel. Israel is really getting ahead of this. They were 2 weeks ahead of us on the Delta. Now they're 2 or 3 weeks ahead of us for the Omicron. I mean, like, they were really ahead of the game.
They are. And well, again, you could also say that about South Korea.
Yes.
And but a lot of it has to do with, I mean, culturally. I mean, a lot of people in the in China, in Asia, in China, in Japan, in Korea, wearing masks is not really a stigma or
it's a natural thing.
Issue because they dealt with SARS 15 years ago.
Well, wait a minute. It's a natural thing. If you think about it, if you ever went to, we've never been to China or Japan or Korea or any of those countries, but if you were to walk around there, that's a normal occurrence to wear a mask in those countries.
Yes, and why do you think they were able to keep a semi lid on it, even though COVID is definitely a lot deadlier than the original SARS, a lot more virulent, I should say, than the original SARS strain in 2003. However, it just seems to me like the longer we prolong, I mean, I hate to say it, but the boat kind of sailed on getting this thing under control, didn't it?
Oh, it's over. I mean, like, for me, it seems like what's going to happen going forward is that COVID is now the new version of the flu, where we're going to have to deal with a new strain every flu season. Get your flu shot, get your COVID shot. That's what I think it's going to become.
And to a certain extent, I mean, you shouldn't be traveling international during COVID times anyway, because it really is more hassle than it's worth.
I mean, I'm seeing it on the news like every day. People are like, "Oh, I'm going to travel outside the country. I'm going on a vacation. I'm doing this." What are you doing? What are you doing? Why?
Well, maybe it's sour grapes because I've never traveled out of the country. And have you?
It's been a long time. I've done the Bahamas a few times, which is nice, but that's like right outside the country if you think about it.
Yeah, I mean, but still, I mean, we're speaking from this. It's like I can't afford to go out of the country. Neither can you.
Well, not right now, at least. But what I would say is, and I'm reading the story from Reuters, which is where a lot of this source of story came from. The CDC is now listing 83 destinations at, quote, level 4 very high classification. And what was added on Monday was Andorra, Cyprus, and Liechtenstein, if I said that right, to the highest travel advisory level, which is basically saying, hey, morons, don't travel.
Please don't go there. Please don't go there over the holiday. It doesn't matter if you have families or not. I mean, it's going to, first of all, you shouldn't even be flying without, there should be a mask mandate and a vaccine mandate on international flights and even domestic flights anyway. I'm surprised they don't already have that.
They changed the rules. They now changed the rules that to fly, you have to have at least one COVID vaccine now.
I'm not even talking about that. I'm talking about needing full vaccination status. 2 weeks past the second the second dose.
Did you see what dumb De Blasio just did?
Oh, the mandate, but he's only going to be in office for the next couple of weeks anyway. I mean, it's a good idea. It is.
In theory.
In theory. But again, are you going to be able to have the manpower to enforce it? And is Adams going to pick up the ball and run with it once he gets up?
That's the problem.
The thing is, he hasn't said anything one way or the other.
Now, it's interesting because just so people know what we're talking about New York, where we are now. But just looking at the COVID pandemic as a whole and looking at Omicron, and I heard Fauci on all the major news networks, which I laugh, not at the variants. I'm laughing when he goes on TV and he tries to tell us, "Oh, everything's okay. It's not a problem. Don't be worried."
Which, for those of us with health anxiety, we're all going, "Bullshit! Nothing's ever fine."
He went on TV and said that this is less, what's the word I'm looking for?
Less severe.
Which I don't believe that for some reason.
Which, again, a lot of the evidence is anecdotal.
Right.
In this case, what we won't know until we get more reports in, and we can actually see what this goddamn thing does when you get it in a lab and start poking at it.
Well, and it also says in the stories, France said Monday it would close nightclubs ahead of Christmas and tighten social distancing measures in response to the emergent Omicron variant of the coronavirus. But there was no need for new lockdowns or curfews. Now, wait a minute. That sentence is an oxymoron if you think about it.
Technically, you're doing everything except calling it a lockdown. It's a lockdown in everything but name.
Oh, and did you see what Biden did where he tried to say, well, all businesses now have to get a vaccine, which, by the way, I'm for. Everyone should get a vaccine.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
But did you see that the U.S. court system knocked it down?
Yes, they did, because they're stupid.
You know what?
They're stupid.
And I hate to say this, and this could and I'm sure Facebook and Twitter are going to try to get this thrown off platforms, but I'm going to say it anyway. The legal system is stupid.
I mean, I could have told you that one.
No, the legal system is stupid, and like they said, like you said earlier, all they care about is profit, not whether people are healthy.
But these are, and also politics, because they're making political what ostensibly should not be a political issue, right?
Right, and also the other thing they're trying to pass here in the U.S. is now they're saying you have to get a test done, and you have to pass at least a day before to travel. Do you know how difficult that is for the hundreds of thousands of people that travel?
Especially considering the backlog, you have to wait a while if you do get. If you go to an urgent care center, you're waiting, I think, probably upwards of an hour from the time you walk in to the time you walk out.
Now, does that count a PCR, or does the longer test? Is it the shorter test?
Sometimes a lot of the time they do both. They do both at the same time.
Right. But I'm saying,
they'll give you the rapid now, but you got to wait a couple days for the results of the
But
PCR.
does the rapid count as the day before test for you to travel?
Yes.
So what? But I thought that the PCR could come up.
Well, they don't make that distinction in the rules, do they?
Well, that's dumb. Because what happens because I remember at the beginning of this pandemic, sometimes the rapid test came up differently than the PCR.
The rule of thumb that they generally use is the further out you are from exposure, the more accurate the test is going to be.
And by the way, France said Monday it now has identified 25 positive cases of the Omicron variant.
Oh, yeah, this thing has been spreading for a while.
I mean, and now, did you hear the weird story that apparently the anime event at
in New York City
at Javits Center sparked a huge amount of Omicron positives?
Yes, and really, I'm not surprised because anybody who's ever heard secondhand stories of going to places like E3 or New York Comic Con or even Comic Con in San Diego know it's kind of unsanitary. It's everybody's pressed up against each other and body odor and sweat, and it's just ugh.
Well, I'd never liked going to those events in general. I'm not gonna voice my displeasure for Comic-Con now because it's not appropriate. But basically, I would say that's like
you wouldn't be caught dead with that nerd bullshit? Is that what you're gonna say?
No, I wasn't actually gonna say that. I just don't like the tight spaces, like you said, of everybody being there, and you're breathing the same air as millions of other people.
Yeah.
So you're bound to get sick if you go to one of those events.
You're bound to catch something.
And now with COVID in the air, I mean, what did you expect?
You were going to end up getting sick anyway.
But, all right, so let's roll over to a second part of this story. A COVID pill. Now, Nick, you were starting to tell me about this. So COVID pill is going to be rolled out before Christmas?
Now, I should be more specific. This is an antiviral pill, the first of its kind, designed to basically do what Tamiflu does. Now, do you know what Tamiflu is?
Oh, I've taken it before, yes.
Now, this pill, designed by Merck, I think, the German pharmaceutical company, is supposed to reduce the likelihood of developing severe symptoms of COVID for those who are high risk of severe outcomes by 30%. And I guess it's better than nothing.
Right.
But they're saying that it goes up against FDA regulators in a couple of weeks. And
didn't see that one coming.
What do you mean?
That it's going up against FDA regulators. They have to get it passed.
Again, because the problem is, look, I've never the FDA is nothing if not thorough. Because believe me, they go over this with a fine-tooth comb.
Well, you think the FDA is saying to themselves right now, holy crap, the amount of things that we have to pass to get this virus under control?
Because this is a friggin' pandemic, man.
No, I'm just saying, like,
pandemic.
You think they're going to have to take up drinking after this? Like,
oh, I'm sure some of them definitely have. If they don't have flasks under their desk, they're definitely hidden under the shirt.
I can't even pronounce half the names of what they're calling these pills. Like, it's crazy.
Molnupiravir. It's molnupiravir.
They're calling it the game-changing pill.
Well, that's not the one I'm excited about because obviously this pandemic has fried my brain and turned me into an amateur epidemiologist.
Me too.
I hate this, but you know what? It's Pfizer's pill that I'm excited about because that shortens the symptoms by 89%.
That's with statistical data, right?
Statistical data that, of course, they provided, but the FDA has to go through the.
What's interesting also is under the plans, the NHS is expected to deliver courses of the tablet to clinically vulnerable and immunosuppressed patients within.
It's a big thing because the only treatments that we have for it, other than vaccines, are monoclonal antibodies, and those are expensive. You have to go to a doctor's office to get it, and you have to get a transfusion. And you have convalescent plasma, which doesn't always work.
You have to get blood drawn, right?
Remdesivir, which
you have to get blood drawn, right?
You have to get blood drawn too. But the fact that you can take an over-the-counter pill that can shorten your symptoms and keep you out of the hospital is a game changer. It's not going to end the pandemic, but these two pills, I think they represent a means in which we can blunt the impact of COVID, where it evolves into something resembling the cult.
By the way, they're saying these pills are within as little as 48 hours of them testing positive for COVID, by the way.
Yeah, you got a very small window of time. So if you test positive, you better get your ass to the doctor and get these pills.
But that's the problem. Do we know if there's any side effects to any of these pills?
That's what the FDA panel is supposed to tell us.
But what are they doing? Are they doing the old-fashioned days? Are they giving it to rats? Like, what are they doing?
Yeah, I think so.
Like, just to see what the hell it's going to do?
Hamsters, I think it was.
Hamsters, rats, same family, basically.
Yeah, now you pissed off the rats and the hamsters.
It's a bunch of rats who won't get the vaccine anyway. But
still, this is you want to be able to turn COVID into an annoyance where you can, okay, this is just something that we deal with every year, and nobody dies from it, and it's basically just like the flu, and it doesn't fuck you up long term. This is how you do it. You must create medications.
Where would you say we are now with this spark in cases? Where would you say we were compared to the first spike of this?
I mean,
the
thing is,
let me give you a number.
It's pretty bad.
Let me give you a number.
More spread out than it was.
Let me give you a number. So when we were at the height of the pandemic here in New York, we were at 10,000 a day.
No, we're not that. Not in this state, at least. But
I'll talk about the U.S.
It's more spread out. So that yes, there are a lot of cases, but it ends up being in a lot of different places.
I thought I heard that they're saying that 100,000 new cases a day are coming in now. I heard
100,000 new cases, yeah, but
a day.
Yeah, but as opposed to last April when it was 10,000 cases a day in New York alone.
But I'm just saying 100,000 cases is something to be majorly concerned about.
Yes, it is something to be majorly concerned about, which is why if you haven't gotten vaccinated yet, get vaccinated.
I mean, didn't they send the National Guard to Michigan and Minnesota?
And did they?
Yes, they had to go help the hospitals because they were in dire straits for space.
Which again, get vaccinated, and if you got vaccinated, get boosted. If you're 6 months past.
I mean, the U.S. government is too busy trying to take revenge against China for the Olympics and whatever, and like we're not sending our government to China for whatever. And how about just worrying about getting people healthy?
That's more of an empty the bench topic, though.
No, that has nothing to do with sports, really. It has to do with just that they're too busy dealing with saying, well, we're not going to represent our athletes at the Olympics. We're just going to make a political stance rather than dealing with the health of people.
There's nothing our government loves more than empty gestures that ultimately mean nothing.
I mean, I feel like I'm going to say we're not going to end up back where we were, but I think we're going to go through a period for in the next couple of months where this could get bad again.
I mean, again, get vaccinated or get boosted. Seriously. That's all I can tell you.
I thought
Please be careful.
I thought
try to avoid crowded places without a mask on, right?
Oh, I've seen that a million times walking around.
Please try to avoid it. It's all in the name of public health. We're making a public health announcement here on Beyond the Bench. Get vaccinated, get boosted, avoid crowded places.
And I'm going to say
public places.
I'm going to say this very clearly, and then we're going to announce who our guest is. That fuck people who go in our comments and say this is political. This has nothing to do with politics.
There are people that do that?
Yes. So
great.
So if you have a problem and you comment in the comments section that this is political, I'm going to block you.
It shouldn't be political, though. Shouldn't be political.
I'm just saying, if I see any comments come into our account at Beyond the Bench 1, if I see any comments that are political, you're going to get instant blocked.
Okay, before you start foaming at the mouth, let's introduce what we've got this week.
All right, so big time guest this week. This is a little bit against the Nick Fodera standard of interview, but
in as much as I have a standard, which is not much.
So I got to sit down with a guy named Jeff Nadu, who used to work at Barstool, and this is the major event that's coming up, Rough and Rowdy, at the end of this week, December 10th, 8 p.m. Eastern, Jersey Jerry versus Jeff Nadu. Now, Jersey Jerry is a personality at Barstool, Nick. Now, if you've ever seen social media videos, he's a Steelers fan who basically crushed a big giant screen TV when the Steelers lost. He's like one of those fans that wears a Steelers jersey every Sunday. And basically Dave Portnoy found out who he was, hired him on the spot. And he's got, this is one thing I like about Dave, that he'll hire local fans from the area and allow them to be themselves. It's an interesting point of view. So then it became a whole thing. Jeff Nadu used to work at Barstool. He did a lot of interesting content. And basically, Jersey Jerry placed a bet in the Barstool Sports book. They changed the play on the field, so Jerry wanted his money back, thinking that because they changed the call, he should get his money back. That's not how gambling works. Once you make a bet, whatever the call is, regardless of changing it, is the way it stands. So Jeff goes on social media, calls out Jerry, and then Jerry challenges Jeff to a fight under the Barstool banner. It's called Rough and Rowdy, which is basically a legal boxing that can be done in the West Virginia area. They own the brand, and it's basically training for a boxing match. They've done this many times before. Jose Canseco took part in a Rough and Rowdy for Barstool.
So he's been a lot of places. He's a very interesting subject.
Yes. So Jeff finally left Barstool because he had enough of what was going on there. So I got to sit down with him. We talked about Barstool a little bit. We talked about the fight. We talked about gambling. We talked about podcasting. This is a wide range conversation that you're going to want to listen to. And you're definitely going to hear what he has to say about some of the, basically the villain. He became the villain when he was at Barstool. Not trying to. He just did. And he talks about a guy named Rico Bosco, who is a big-time personality who just went from part-time to full-time at Barstool and basically pushes everybody out of Barstool. So there's a lot going on in this piece. So sit back, relax, grab the popcorn, socially distanced, obviously, because we're dealing with COVID, and take a listen, and then we'll come back. We'll finish the episode off. We'll give you some final notes. And then after that, we'll see you in the next episode. So hang tight, and we'll be right back. Joining me on Beyond the Bench, you might know this guy. You might have seen him at Barstool. He does sports betting content. He does podcasts. We'll get into a lot of the podcasts. And also, he's going to be taking part in an event, Rough and Rowdy, on December 10th, 8 p.m. Eastern, Jersey Jerry versus Jeff Nadu. We'll get into the match. We'll get into all that. And I really enjoy your content. I've actually listened to your podcast, so I really like them. So, Jeff, thanks for joining me.
Thanks for having me, Nick. I really appreciate the kind words. Thank you for supporting my show, and thank you for having me on. Any way I can kind of spread the word of who I am and what I'm about, what I'm doing, I appreciate that. So thank you for having me.
So let's get into the big event, the Rough and Rowdy event. Like I said, December 10th, 8 p.m. Eastern time. Can you talk about how this all came to be? I saw the videos. I saw Jersey Jerry go on Dave Portnoy's show and start laying into you and everything. Can you kind of give that background a little bit, and then we'll go into how this...
Yeah, It was really kind of random. It was about, I don't know, 2 months or so at this point, maybe around the end of September. It was a random Sunday night. I was just finished up watching the 4 o'clock games in the NFL, and I saw Dave Portnoy post a DM that he had received from Jerry. And by that point, I think Jerry had just been hired. I didn't know much about Jerry. I don't work at Barstool anymore, but I had heard that he was hired. I didn't know much about him. And he had sent a DM saying that he had wanted his money back from a bet he made at Barstool Sportsbook after he bet on Julio Jones to score a touchdown. The refs called the touchdown off because his toe was on the line. And Jerry claimed that he should get the money back because, I guess he thought that the guy was in. And I just thought that was a weird, wild way. And I don't know. I guess it was for shtick. I don't know what it was for. But, if I had gotten every dime back that I've lost from refs in my life, I wouldn't be taking a fight with him or here talking to you or anyone else probably. I responded and just said something along the lines of like, is this guy serious? What the hell is this? And before I know it, the next tweet, he's literally calling me out to fight and brings up Rough and Rowdy. Now, I had did a little digging on this guy. I found out that he had challenged multiple people to fights in his last year in content. I think what he was doing, and I think there was a method to his madness, Nick. I really think he views Rough and Rowdy and he's not wrong. As a new employee, it is a great promotional tool for himself, and now you can get paid off of it. So I think he did the right thing. He got a willing participant in me. And, I think the tough thing about this all is I don't know much about Jerry. He seems like an okay guy. I know he's had a tough life getting to where he is. I wish him the best. But for those 3 minutes, he is going to be the person that I take the frustration out on from all the things that happened with me at Barstool. I don't feel like I was treated correctly there. I know ultimately I left, but it wasn't because of things that I felt I did. So, I don't know if there's a deep down visceral hate for the guy. He has said some screwed up things about my family and about me. So for those 3 minutes, he's going to be on my can I swear?
Yeah, absolutely.
He's going to be on my shit list for about 3 minutes.
Now, would you say the motive for you is to really go after him and, like you said, for the 3 minutes, or is it, I don't like to say this about people, but is it about a money thing? Because I've heard you two go back and forth on that.
Listen, if you know anything about the high end Rough and Rowdy stuff, I would fight Mike Tyson for that kind of money. You know what I'm saying? So, at the end of the day, I'm 32. I'm single. I have no kids. I mean, it's a good amount of money for someone like me. And, whenever you're presented with an opportunity, you have to look at it many different ways. And, for me, I thought this really kind of coincided with everything that I've done over the last year and losing the amount of weight I've lost. And, to be real with you, I was just looking for another way to do cardio. And I thought this would be a great challenge. I thought it'd be a good way to stay kind of relevant what I'm doing. I think if you're not growing, you're dying. And, I looked at it from all angles. And, it's for me, it's more about than just the guy I'm fighting. I really don't care much about my opponent. I look through him. I don't see him when I fight someone, and I won't see him. He's what Barstool is as a whole. And, again, he's just the guy for 3 minutes that I'm going to be hitting.
Now, was it a direct invitation to do the Rough and Rowdy, or was it just because Jerry got directly to Dave and said, I'm ready to go?
Big Cat kind of got wind of it and tweeted it out. And then the next day, I had received word from Dave's people about doing the Portnoy show. And then the next day, he had contacted me and said, hey, are you serious about this? Because I don't know if you know, Nick, but they've offered me to fight before. There was some talk at one point fighting Big Ev. They wanted that to happen. They had offered me to fight Stu Feiner at one point. We obviously were offered Rico Bosco and I to fight each other. He declined. I'd accepted. So this had been kind of in the works at some point. I didn't know if it had ever happened. And he said to me, what's your price? I gave him a price. We kind of were able to work something out and we made it happen. So, I don't know quite how to say this without, I guess there's either people that love me or hate me with what I do. But for me, this is, in my opinion, is a win-win for me. I'll leave no regret on what I do here. I'm going to give the best 3 minutes I've ever been able to give on something, and I'm going to do my best and try to take care of business. But at the end of this, and when this is over on Friday night, I have no regrets. I already have one. I'm happy with what I'm doing now. My life is good. I'm content, and I'm going to have a little bit more money. So, I've heard it all on the internet. So I'm not a beaten man, but I'm a man that's kind of I've heard it all, and I'm ready for whatever comes from it. And if I win, I think that'll be a bad night for Barstool.
Now, you were talking about, I guess, taking the villain point of view. Now, I happen to take your side on a lot of these things. I happen to think you do a lot of good content, and it's very entertaining. Now, I happen to like you and the Rico back and forth. I always think you're right in those situations. That's just my opinion. Some people are different. But do you think that you wrongly got the villain point of view when you were there at Barstool at that point?
Yeah, I definitely don't think I was ever properly really represented. I never really was able to get out in front of the entire audience and really kind of explain who I am and who I was. Because again, everything I do, I'm way bigger than Jerry or Rico. Like my life there's more to it than them, But I think at Barstool, there are certain people that whether you want to or not, you're tied to. Everyone has their kind of connections there, good or bad. And, for whatever reason, Dave Portnoy really likes the fact that I get under his skin. And I think, has it given me an opportunity? Yeah. But, we all need connections in the world, no matter how you get them. And this has spurned off to other things for me. So I guess I've moved on from them and that whole thing, I've accepted that I don't know if it's the best fit. I am an old school handicapper. I just like to talk about games and handicap and things of that nature. And that's not necessarily what they want. I do feel that there are times where I am entertaining. Do I think I got a raw deal? Probably. But I went in and did my best. I thought we had a show that people liked. Ultimately, I guess I just decided that it was better for me to just go back on my own. I've always been able to make money before then, and I've been able to make it after. So it's all part of the journey that I've had doing all this. And, it's offered me things like this fight and who knows what else in the future.
I mean, if you win the fight, does that lead to an opportunity possibly to go back? Or is this just a one-timer?
Well, it really depends. I'll never say I'm not going to do anything. I'm not a fighter, Nick. Okay. And that's not to say like, look, if I have a friend and we're out and my friend gets attacked, I'm going to fight for my friend. I'm going to fight for my girl or my mom. But I think we think that fighting is a measurement of how big of a man you are. It's not. I could very well lose on Friday. I don't think it makes me any less of a man. But I'll never leave anything closed. You never know what may happen. And I've enjoyed it. It's been fun learning how to really fight somebody and learn how to fight the right way, because a lot of people don't realize they think it's easy to hit somebody. It's not, and I've enjoyed it. I wouldn't say I'm going to be a professional, though. If another opportunity presents itself, I'll look to get on the card at some point, and if I can find the right opponent. But it's not. I have ideas of people I'd want to fight if we're ever to continue, but we'll take it day by day. You never know.
And you actually went out and did like tough training to get ready for this fight, like he did?
Yeah, I've been working really closely with two guys, and my main trainer, has been really integral to helping me. He's taught me a lot. It's so interesting how if you put time into something, the difference you can see, whether you are shooting free throws or learning how to learn a language or whatever. I remember the first day I went in pretty arrogant. I'm just, I'll be honest, Nick. No, I haven't really told anyone this. I had honestly at one point when I had agreed to this, I thought to myself, I'm not going to train at all. Like, I'll just keep doing cardio. I'll be fine. And I'm so glad that I had this. I don't know why I ever thought I could do that. But I remember going in that first day and I said to my trainer, like, this will be fine. He's like, all right, let's get in the ring. He's like, I'm not going to hit you. See if you can hit me. And it was wild. Like, it's super hard, and I wasn't even standing correctly, and footwork, and it's funny because I really worked almost like a quarterback or a running back would in the NFL, where I'm doing ladder drills and sprints and suicides and just kind of putting it all together. So yeah, we spent a lot of time on it, and I think we'll be ready to go.
And I just want to briefly touch, because you brought up Rico before. What was the beef? Like, I know part of the beef, I know a lot of the story, but was it really more blown out of proportion than that actually was?
I don't know. You'd have to ask him. I have no idea to this day why he doesn't like me. If you want me to tell you what I think it is, I'd be glad to. I think if you followed Rico over the years, it's been pretty clear I dictate everything he does, and he can say that I don't. But I'll just tell you this: I was hired in September of 2020. Rico Bosco decided to show his face around the same time. He has always been threatened by what I do. He knows I'm good at what I do. He wasn't a college basketball handicapper until I came around and had my show. Everything I do, and that's why, Nick, I could never work there until they address the situation and get us in a room. It would never work. And I basically realized that and recognized it and said, you know what? I'm just going to do my own thing. He's deathly afraid of me. I think that was pretty evident, and that's been pretty evident. He's one of those guys that enjoys talking behind a camera, or on the phone. And when you show up, it's curtains. So I just don't, as a man, I have certain ethics that I want to live by, and those just aren't them. And I don't understand why anyone would put up with that, but it is what it is.
I mean, I always thought the contract BS that he put in, that you guys couldn't be in the same room, was ridiculous. I mean, if you're going to work in the same company, you work in the same company regardless of, and you figure out your differences to work in the same place.
Yeah, but the thing is, like, they enable him, and they get this feeling that he's better than everyone else is. I mean, he's ostracized a lot of people there. So I don't know. I don't, like I said, I've almost moved on, and it's not that if they contacted me and said, hey, we'd really like to buy your podcast, or we'd really like to make this all work for you. We think you can be a help here, and everything will be cool. I would go back. I would help. I'd go anywhere if it were the right situation. But, I noticed this on Monday, Nick, when I went there. I guess I'm just not built to, like, live in New York. It's just not for me. I'm so happy being able to wake up and do what I do every day, and I dictate the life that I have. And my podcast is now making money, so I'm content. I'm ready to settle my life down.
Actually, since you brought the podcast up, you do the Sit Down and you do Big Men on Basketball, right? Those are two of your podcasts.
Yeah. So I'm actually, and I haven't really talked much about this, but I think after the fight, probably January 1st, I'm actually going to bring Big Men on Basketball back once a week. I'm working, and I'm hoping to get the original feed that I had at Barstool. I'm hoping they're willing to give it back to me. And we're going to bring that back for the 3 months that we'll have of college hoops. And I think people really enjoy it. I still do my own content. I'm on Patreon, and I'm very happy with that. But yeah, I have a show called The Sit Down. It's about the mafia. It's about mafia history. And this is really one of the greatest things I've ever done as a content person. I never knew what this show would be. I just did it because it was kind of a hobby of mine. I've got so many mob books, and I really just have been enthralled by that culture. And we started doing it in April, and we're almost 40 episodes in, and I mean, I'm at almost 1 million listens since we started, and we're getting paid now. We get ads. It's a popular show, and we're happy with it.
So what do you think of the podcast game? I guess, like you said, when you're with Barstool, different story. Now you're by yourself doing the podcast content. Obviously, flexibility, you said, the different situation. Is it easier to do it on your own, or what do you think about that?
Yeah, I mean, it's been no issue so far. It's a grind to hopefully, make it bigger and bigger. And look, the good thing about being connected to somewhere like Barstool is there have been opportunities where they've mentioned my show and they've gotten into the ears of others. But we really just did it through the word of mouth. I've went into the YouTube community and to the mob YouTube community, and I've aligned with people that are doing similar things and just try to get the word out there. There are Facebook pages about the mob. There are all sorts of different resources, and there's just not a lot of people doing it, man. There might be 2 or 3 mob podcasts out there, and luckily we're one of them. And we do a really simple show. We just pick one person every week and we tell you their story. We try to include it and make it compelling and tell you something you didn't know. So, we'll tell you about John Gotti or Al Capone or whoever, but we'll also tell you about other people that you've never heard of. And we'll talk about stuff that is and isn't true. We talked about Goodfellas and what's true about that film, and Donnie Brasco and all these different things. So it's really, and we talk about the news and what's going on today. And I enjoy it. I'm really happy with it.
So are you sports podcasting content first, or do you like mixing both, or how do you look at it that way?
Well, I kind of just keep it all separate. Now I just do. So I have a Patreon account, and every day I put a video out. I talk about the card, and I'm having a great college football season, and everything's great. And we only do the mob podcast once a week, and I have a great time with that. We have a good producer, and everything's easy. So it's enough work, and it does what it needs to do.
So obviously talking about gambling, also you're in that space. What do you think of the way the gambling space is going now? You said you were more old-fashioned handicapper. Yeah. So what do you think about the way the space is kind of growing in tenfold?
Well, it's definitely a lot different. Do I think there's a place for me in it? Not really. I think for me, I'm just trying to find my little niche, find the people that enjoy my content and, try to earn a nice living doing that. I used to want to be famous and, maybe sometime have a show or go work at Barstool. But, I don't want to just be, I also don't look a certain way, and I don't have, I'm kind of a bit abrasive and say things I shouldn't sometimes. So I don't know. It's kind of passed me by. I just find my own niche and try to help people, and people like what I'm doing. So that's all I really look to do now. But, my dream would always be to have a show where I could just sit there and talk about college basketball or college football. And I have bigger thoughts that I want to do outside of all this. So I think in my next 5 years, I want to get into to coaching. That's something I've always wanted to do. High school basketball, that kind of thing. So I want to help kids. I think if I could do anything and I had all the money in the world, I would help young kids, because I think the youth of our generation now are really just lost, I feel like. So I think if I can do anything to help people, what we miss in this country is basketball coaches, boxing, places for people and kids to go, and I don't know if I can help a kid, because I remember my town that I live in, we have a city here where I live in, and I just remember so many kids when I was younger. They were such great players, but they never really had anyone around them, kids get lost in the shuffle. So in the next 5 years, that's something I'd like to do, I think.
So looking at everything you've done, obviously Barstool, these podcasts now, what you want to do in the future, do you think are you surprised at how much you've accomplished, or do you think that there's a lot more to do? There's not as much to do. What do you look at everything and say, I've accomplished, I've gotten to where I want to be, or no?
Well, I think when I started doing all this, I remember I had a regular job. I worked a regular job until the end of 2017, 2018. So, I never knew what I would do with this. I guess the goal was just to create a cool hobby and something I had done for many years. And, I don't think anyone thought we'd see the TikTok generation, all these different crazy things. But, the goal is, I think at certain points, just get paid and try to make some money off of it. But I filed taxes for the last 3 years, and my job has been content. So you do what you have to do. I was always taught to go out and create my own business. We actually did, and I urge anyone to go check it out. We did something called R&R Unfiltered. It was really a look into my life, and we talked to my dad, and I was always taught to go out and create your own things. My sister, my brother, all of us, we have our own businesses, and, I'm sure there's much more to do. Who knows where I'll go from here. But like I said, I want to really calm down my life, get off Twitter, not be on there as much, and just try to do more. And I'm pretty happy with where I'm at. So I'm blessed with what I've been able to do.
So I guess the last thing I'll say, is there anything you want to say about the fight as we wrap up here? Or
I just urge you, you know, it's a great time right now. You know, it's right before Christmas. We had really pushed. We originally were going to do this fight in February. And Jerry said, why don't we do it in December, right before Christmas? And I really thought about it. I said, you know what, that sounds really good. You know, get this done before Christmas. And it's a great time to do it. You know, it's a Friday night. It's cold in most of the country. You know, you're going to get 20 fights that night. You know, it's going to be action packed. You got Dave and Big Cat on the call. You know, we're going to do our best to give the best fight out there. This is really me against them as a company. You know, I have some things to take some aggression out on, and I think all the fights are going to be great. And I urge you, make sure you listen after the fight. Could be an electric interview after the fact. So I guess you'll see if I can get my debt collected. You know, debt's always collected in my life. So you got to see if I'll collect that debt on Friday, December 10th.
I don't know if you want to go out on a limb. Are you putting how fast you think you'll win or beat the fight, or you're just going to go out there and give it all?
Do this guarantee crap. I'm just going to go in and do my best and try to take care of business. I've always tried to just be, even in my like all that stuff you saw on Monday and stuff, that's not what I want to do. If I didn't have to go up there and do that, I didn't want to. I have no ill will towards Jerry. I really don't. I hope we can both get out of it and be good and everything's fine. You know, the best man's going to win. And, you know, I wish him the best in what he does. And I'm sure he feels the same deep down. So for those 3 minutes though, and when I'm walking out, this is my moment of like, I'll never be Aaron Rodgers or I don't know, Carmelo Anthony or whoever. I'll never be that. This is that for me. So I'm just going to get excited and enjoy it. And whatever happens, happens.
Yeah, I was watching that video, and it just looked like you didn't want to cause confrontation. You were more.
No, I don't like if someone says something to me, I will gladly chop back. You know, but for me, like, I'm not a big fan of forced confrontation. You know, like I want like, and I get it, that's how it works, but I just. You know, I prefer it to be natural, you know, but, you know, we had a good time. The dunk tank was a cool idea. I thought we said what we had to say and, you know, I'm sure it'll sell fight. So,
I mean, I thought it was interesting having the bodyguards there. I think that was a little over the
top.
They
were cool guys though, man. I'll be honest. They all were very cool. You know, they said, you know, I'm sure it'll be a scrap or two, but you know, I didn't know they were, you know, it's funny when we first got there and we had that stare down and that kind of thing, they were not there. So, they didn't get there until the actual event started. So I think with Jerry, like has a point to prove. He has to always be the toughest guy in the room. And I think he's a cuddly house cat at the end of the day. We'll see. Maybe he's a great fighter. We'll have to see. But again, the last thing I'll say, in my mind, I've already won. You know, it's a great opportunity. It's a cool thing that I'm going to do. And I give them a lot of credit for giving me an opportunity to do it. Whether you love me or hate me, you know, I'm going to be good on Friday night, Saturday morning, regardless. So,
no, it's going to be a great fight. Rough and Rowdy, December 10th, 8 p.m. Eastern, Jersey Jerry versus Jeff Nadu. It was great talking to you, Jeff. And
yeah, same to you, man. I really appreciate it. You had great questions. It was a good atmosphere, and everyone go listen to this guy. He's a good guy. He's doing his thing, and maybe I can come on after the fact. We'll do a little March Madness down the road or something, whatever.
Yeah, sure. Absolutely. So thanks for coming on, and hopefully we'll talk again.
Cheers, man. Thanks.
All right. Hopefully you enjoyed that interview with Jeff Nadu, who used to work at Barstool. He now does his own podcasting content. He does gambling content. And Nick, hopefully you have a different outlook on this type of content.
I can say that I do.
I mean, I know you've said it before. Barstool this, Barstool that.
So are we just going to spend the rest of the time making me eat my words, or are we gonna actually get into what we've got coming up next?
All right, let's talk about what's coming up next. So we're coming to the end of the year. We have a lot of great stuff coming up for you. We actually have another guest in the pipeline as well. I'm not going to share that yet. Another comedian that we're going to talk to who used to be on the Howard Stern show, but we'll get to that in a later date. But Christmas is coming up. We could be festive.
That's right. So for the next couple of episodes, or you're going to see us get a little bit away from more current event stuff and a lot more festive. Let's just talk about the holidays. Just a general back and forth, very relaxed atmosphere. Like, what are your favorite Christmas cookies, Christmas specials, Christmas this, Christmas that, and or we can also talk New Year's, Hanukkah. We can talk all the holidays. You know what? You'll have to stop us if we end up talking about Arbor Day.
Well, you're a little late for Arbor Day, aren't you?
Yeah, but next Arbor Day, I'm counting forward.
I mean, that's like, we could talk about the topic of Christmas music. When is it too early for Christmas music?
Yeah, but yeah. So there's going to be a lot of fun stuff here coming on Beyond the Bench. So make sure you like and subscribe and ring bells and follow us. So
and by the way,
don't want to miss any of it.
And we'll say it on this show. We're going to say it on all the shows coming up. The Empty the Bench Podcast Network, and you can follow that as well at ETB Network on Facebook and Twitter. There's a lot of stuff coming, a lot. So you better stay in the lurch, stay there, and be ready for when this stuff drops. There are more people coming on to the podcast network. We have a head of social media who I just told you about, Nico Campanelle. And Anthony Mara is another guy who's coming on to our podcast. And he's going to be the head of structure and content. He's going to help us grow as well. So remember how I said, Nick, when this idea first came, that it was just Empty the Bench and Beyond the Bench?
Yeah.
And now it's grown to 10 podcasts, a bunch of social media, a bunch of digital content. And 2022 is going to look big. I can feel it.
Oh, it's going to be big, but if you make me wear a suit, I quit.
No, there's no suits because I hate wearing suits. I don't think I've ever worked a suit and tie job ever.
Yeah, you can't make me wear a suit. I look like a penguin. Look at the way I'm shaped, for God's sake.
Just don't waddle. That might be worse.
Damn it, too late.
But yes, there's a lot coming up. Follow at ETV Network on Facebook and Twitter. Follow us as well. And there's a lot coming in 2022. There's a lot of people joining us. So, and we'll get into this when we do the last couple of episodes as well. We'll make some announcements of shows coming along the way so we can help promote them as well. And yeah, so there's a lot coming up. And just, I think that's about it. Right, Nick?
Yep. That'll do it for us this week. So, for my intrepid co-host, Mr. Nick Morgasen, I'm Nick Fodera. See you back on the bench, folks. Good night.
Good night, everybody. We'll see you next week for episode 11.